Welcome to True Animal Terrors. Before we jump in, please let us know where you're tuning in from. May 25th, 2020. Dayton, Tennessee, a quiet, close-knit town where neighbors still know each other by name, was shattered by a frantic 911 call that pierced the early morning calm. She's not breathing. Oh my God, there's blood everywhere. Those chilling words set the stage for a tragedy so devastating, it shook even the most experienced first responders. When authorities arrived at the modest, secluded home nestled just outside Dayton, they were met with a scene so brutal and unimaginable that it defied belief. The victim, Lacy Dval, was not just any woman, she was a beloved local animal rescuer, someone who had dedicated decades of her life to saving dogs others had abandoned or given up on. Yet inside her own home, the very sanctuary she built for her four-legged family, she had been savagely mauled to death by the pack she had taken in and loved. This harrowing chapter marks the tragic end of Lacy's life and raises unsettling questions about loyalty instinct and the dangers that emerge when compassion collides with nature's raw and unforgiving realities. At 61, Lacy Dval was a well-known figure in Dayton, Tennessee, not for wealth or status, but for her remarkable compassion. She lived on the town's outskirts in a wooded area far enough from neighbors to afford privacy, but close enough to feel part of the small community. Known for opening her home to the dogs no one else wanted, those abused, aggressive, or abandoned, Lacy had created a haven where wounded animals found refuge. Neighbors often saw her walking the property line, followed by a trail of wagging tails. For many, it was a heartwarming sight, a testament to kindness in a world often cruel to animals. But for others, it was a warning sign of something spiraling out of control. What began as a rescue mission had turned into a chaotic, unmanaged pack, a living symbol of good intentions gone dangerously awry. Driven by an unwavering belief that every dog deserved a second chance, no matter how broken or wild, Lacy's rescue grew steadily. By 2020, she was living with at least 18 mixed-breed dogs, many large, muscular, and lacking basic training or socialization. Yet Lacy remained confident that love and patience could heal even the most traumatized. Friends described her sleeping alongside the dogs, sharing meals, and calling them her babies. But beneath this devotion, cracks began to show. There were no kennels, no scheduled feeding times, no professional support, only one aging woman overwhelmed by the demands of nearly 24 unpredictable animals. Barking and growling echoed late into the night. Fights broke out regularly, some dogs bit each other, and neighbors reported disturbing noises. Despite this, when animal control checked in, Lacy insisted everything was under control, masking the growing dangers with her passion and determination. But passion, when unchecked, can sometimes blind us to fatal mistakes. Her home, set back on a narrow gravel road and surrounded by dense woods, provided the isolation she sought and the privacy that concealed the mounting risks. Inside that modest single-story house, the dogs roamed freely, unconfined by kennels or barriers. Some were friendly, others were deeply fearful or aggressive. Over time, the environment shifted from a chaotic but loving rescue to something resembling a feral pack bound by instinct and dominance. Public records show that in the 6 months leading up to the tragedy, at least 3 neighbors filed complaints about constant barking dogs, growling at passersby, and unseen fights among the animals. One neighbor, Patricia Willis, described hearing what sounded like a dog being attacked by others for nearly 20 minutes in the early morning hours. Yet with limited resources and no clear evidence of abuse or neglect, Animal Control's wellness checks never escalated beyond polite warnings. Lacy greeted officers with a smile, passionately defending her mission, insisting her dogs were misunderstood creatures, needing love, not cages, and that if she didn't care for them, no one else would. Volunteers who entered Lacy's home quickly realized the escalating tension inside. One former helper, who asked to be identified only as Megan, recalled the chaos vividly. It wasn't safe. Some dogs had never been walked or socialized. You couldn't even bring food into the room without a fight breaking out. They were pack animals now. Despite repeated concerns from friends and neighbors, Lacy refused to give up any of the more aggressive dogs. She wouldn't build fences or separate the animals, viewing such measures as betrayal, a sign she didn't believe in their rehabilitation. The house remained a pressure cooker of unchecked energy and territorial disputes with no structure and no plan B. Her devotion was clear, but the truth was stark: she was losing control. And when control slips away in a home full of dominant territorial dogs, disaster looms. Monday, Memorial Day, May 25th, 2020 began like any other morning. Around 7:30 a.m., neighbors heard the usual early barking and commotion as Lacey moved from room to room with bowls of kibble and meat scraps, trying to maintain peace among 18 high-energy dogs competing fiercely for food. But by noon, something felt wrong. Lacey was expected at a veterinary clinic in Cleveland, Tennessee that afternoon to drop off medical records for one of her rescues. When she missed the appointment and didn't answer calls or texts, her longtime friend and fellow rescuer, Denise Albright, grew concerned. Denise had known Lacey for over a decade. She'd witnessed the risks firsthand, voiced her worries, and even offered to help rehome some of the more dangerous dogs, but Lacey always refused. By 6 p.m., Denise drove to Lacey's home, pulling into the gravel driveway and immediately sensing something was wrong. The front door was ajar. Barking inside was louder and more frantic than usual. Stepping out of her car, Denise called Lacey's name, but no answer came. Through the doorway, she saw a terrifying sight: dogs pacing, growling, circling. Partially obscured on the living room floor lay what looked like a body under a torn blanket. Blood smeared the linoleum, claw marks scarred the walls, and the air was thick with the smell of urine and copper. Denise backed away, shaking, fumbling for her phone to call 911. "They're everywhere," she told the dispatcher, voice trembling. "She's on the ground. I think they bit her face. Oh my God, there's blood all over. I think she's dead." When deputies from the Rhea County Sheriff's Office arrived minutes later, they had to wait for backup. The dogs were agitated and territorial, blocking the doorway. One even lunged at a deputy trying to enter. Once inside, the scene was beyond anything the officers had ever witnessed. Lacey's body lay motionless in the center of the room, clothes shredded, deep lacerations covering her arms, legs, and torso. Most disturbingly, her face had been savaged beyond recognition, a grim testament to the deadly consequences of a rescue mission gone tragically wrong. According to the official police report, Lacy Dval suffered catastrophic trauma to her head and neck, injuries so severe they made survival impossible. When authorities finally entered the home, at least two of the dogs were still actively feeding on her remains, a chilling detail that underscored the brutality of the attack. Officers had to use tranquilizers and catch poles to restrain the animals, while several dogs hid beneath furniture and inside closets, others continuing to circle the motionless body, growling with primal intensity. It was a savage, instinctual end for a woman whose life was dedicated to compassion, a fatal contradiction born from the very creatures she had vowed to protect. This horrific scene left the town of Dayton with a haunting question that echoed long after the blood was washed away: was this a tragic accident or a deadly inevitability? The crime scene inside Lacey's rural home stunned even the most seasoned investigators. Deputy Eric Thomason of the Rhea County Sheriff's Office was among the first to enter after the dogs were subdued. He described the scene as a house of horrors, the living room floor soaked in blood-torn fabric, dog feces and shredded clothing strewn across every visible surface. Scratch marks lined the walls, evidence of frantic pacing and fierce fights for dominance. Furniture was overturned and splintered. The heavy air was thick with the overwhelming stench of death. Lacey's body was found dragged several feet from where the attack began, indicated by a dense pool of blood near the kitchen doorway. Her limbs were brutally mauled, the skin on her forearms and calves torn open, and her face rendered unrecognizable due to massive trauma. Part of her scalp had even been ripped away by one of the dogs. The following morning, Rhea County Medical Examiner Dr. Ronald Marcus performed the autopsy, delivering grim findings. The official cause of death was exsanguination, extreme blood loss from multiple deep dog bite wounds. Lacey had likely remained conscious for several agonizing minutes during the initial assault, suffering greatly before succumbing to shock and hemorrhaging. The wounds were consistent with a coordinated multi-animal attack. Remarkably, there was no evidence of defensive bites on her body, signaling she had been overwhelmed by the pack. Over 30 distinct bite marks were documented, ranging from jagged tears that shredded flesh to deep punctures aimed at arteries and soft tissues. This was not a random attack, but a sustained, aggressive, fatal assault. Further investigation revealed disturbing details inside the home. Blood trails suggested Lacey may have tried to crawl or move away during the attack before collapsing. Claw marks were visible on the inside of the front door, indicating some dogs had either attempted to escape or been stirred into frenzy. Several of the dogs' muzzles were stained with blood. One large brindle mix, identified as Ranger, was observed guarding the body until tranquilized. Authorities concluded that the pack Lacey had nurtured and loved had turned predatory. Whether the attack was sparked by a fight over food, a sudden challenge for dominance, or an uncontrollable pack mentality, no one could say for sure. What was certain was that Lacey had not died by accident, but in a brutal, coordinated attack by the very animals she had vowed to save. In the days that followed, the small town of Dayton, Tennessee, found itself thrust into the national spotlight. What began as a heartbreaking local tragedy quickly escalated into a media frenzy. At a press conference on May 27th, Chief Deputy Sean Andrews addressed the public with grim honesty. This was not an isolated bite, he said. This was a full pack attack. The victims suffered severe trauma consistent with a prolonged mauling. Our officers responded as quickly as possible, but by the time they entered, it was already too late. Headlines splashed across the country: dog rescuer, mauled by her own pet's beloved volunteer. Eaten alive in Tennessee, from savior to victim, how 18 rescue dogs turned on their owner. News vans lined the narrow road to Lacey's remote property, satellite trucks parked outside her overgrown yard, journalists interviewing stunned neighbors and distraught animal rescue volunteers. The image of Lacey, a smiling woman in her 60s, with short gray hair and a tender heart for strays, was everywhere. The community's response was immediate and deeply divided. Many remembered her as a selfless soul who sacrificed everything for animals no one else wanted. Friends recounted her sleeping on the couch so the dogs could have the bed, skipping meals to afford veterinary care, and refusing to turn away even the most difficult cases. But others, particularly local residents and animal control officials, voiced long-standing concerns. Public records showed at least 5 complaints filed with Rhea County Animal Control between 2018 and 2020. Neighbors cited aggressive dogs breaking loose, incessant barking at all hours, and visible fights in the yard. One complaint, filed just months before the attack, described her home as overrun with dogs that were feral, unpredictable, and dangerous. What had started as a mission of mercy in the eyes of some had become a case of unchecked hoarding. On May 28th, Rhea County Animal Control Director Karen Redford made a difficult but necessary decision. After evaluating the behavior and condition of the surviving dogs, 15 were deemed unfit for rehabilitation and were euthanized. 3 dogs, 2 smaller mixes, and a timid shepherd named Luna were cleared by behavioral specialists and transported to a licensed sanctuary in Kentucky. The decision ignited outrage among some animal advocates who believed more could have been saved. But for local officials, the line had already been crossed. These were no longer just rescue dogs. They were a pack that had tasted blood and become a lethal force. Online debates erupted. Was Lacey a martyr sacrificed for her boundless compassion? Or was she reckless, blind to the danger she willingly invited? A local columnist in the Tennessee Daily Times posed the starkest question: were these rescue dogs or ticking time bombs waiting to explode? As investigators searched for answers, experts across the country weighed in. Dr. Meredith Kleen, a certified veterinary behaviorist based in Nashville, spoke candidly with local media days after the attack. This was a preventable tragedy, she said. When you have a large number of dogs, especially mixed breeds with unknown trauma histories, living in tight quarters without structured hierarchy or training, you're not running a rescue. You're managing a pack, and a pack without leadership is dangerous. Canine aggression experts noted that warning signs don't always manifest. Pack behavior is primal and instinctual. Under stressors like hunger, dominance struggles, or fear, aggression can erupt violently. Dr. Elijah Vaughn, a dog behaviorist with over 20 years' experience rehabilitating aggressive animals, put it bluntly: when there's no clear hierarchy or control, the dogs decide who's alpha that day. Unfortunately, they decided it wasn't her. Interviews revealed Lacey had been bitten multiple times in the months leading to her death, but never reported her injuries. A close friend, Maria Sanderson, recalled Lacey brushing off concerns: "They just got scared, that's all. They're not dangerous, they just need love." But love alone isn't enough. Without behavioral structure, safety protocols, and routine training, even the most well-meaning rescues can spiral into something far darker, something lethal. Reenactments show Lacey waving off a friend's concerns as 2 of the larger dogs barked and circled her feet. She grimaced when one nipped at her hand but said nothing. Another flashback reveals Lacey alone in the bathroom, taping gauze to a bleeding bite on her leg, refusing to go to the emergency room. She didn't want the dogs taken away. She didn't want trouble. But in trying to protect them, she left herself dangerously vulnerable, and in the end, that silence cost her everything. If this story moved you, whether you found it compelling, disturbing, or thought-provoking, we want to hear from you. Do you think Lacey should have been forced to give up her dogs earlier? Could this tragedy have been prevented? Let us know what you think in the comments below. In the quiet days after the headlines faded and news vans left, the pain in Dayton, Tennessee remained raw. Friends gathered outside Lacey's small home on Back Valley Road, now padlocked and silent. Flowers lay at the front gate, and handwritten notes fluttered in the breeze. One read, simply, "You saved so many, Lacey. We're sorry we couldn't save you." Her longtime friend and fellow volunteer, Angela McCoy, spoke through tears to a local paper. She died doing what she loved. But no one deserves to go like that. Family members released a brief statement through a funeral home in nearby Chattanooga. Lacey had a heart bigger than her own safety. She gave everything to animals others gave up on. While we grieve this devastating loss, we remember the life she lived and the love she gave. Though her final moments were horrific, her life left a lasting impact. Of the 200 dogs Lacey had rescued and rehomed over the last decade, many still live peacefully with adoptive families across Tennessee, Kentucky, and Georgia. Social media overflowed with photos, happy dogs curled up on couches, running through grassy yards, even wearing birthday hats beside smiling children, each a small piece of her enduring legacy. Despite the tragedy, those who knew Lacey refused to let her story be defined solely by its end. She believed deeply that every dog, no matter how broken, deserved a second chance. But in the end, even the kindest soul cannot outlive instinct. This isn't just a story of heartbreak, it's a warning. While love and compassion can heal wounds, they cannot tame instinct, override fear, or replace structure. Lacey believed she could save every dog, but by trying to do so alone without boundaries, without backup, she crossed a line few dare to approach. And in the end, she paid the ultimate price. Across the country, animal rescuers work daily to protect the voiceless, but they do so with teams training and careful plans. Safety doesn't mean less compassion. It means survival for the animals and the humans who care for them. If you ever suspect signs of animal hoarding, neglected aggression, or uncontrolled pack behavior, speak up. Lives depend on it. And if this story moved you or made you think, don't forget to hit that like button, leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Could this tragedy have been prevented? Was Lacey a hero or overwhelmed by forces beyond her control? Subscribe for more real-life wildlife stories. Stories both heartbreaking and horrifying. And always remember, wild instincts don't stay buried forever.
For years they were called vanished, forgotten by the world, trapped in memories no one dared to face. But a mother's unshaken love brought light back to the place where innocence was buried. Lucas, Diego, Ferdinand, and every unnamed child from Howard's Haven are no longer just files in a ledger. They are seen, they are remembered, they are finally free.
And if you're involved in animal rescue, remember, compassion must be paired with knowledge, boundaries, and teamwork. Together we can prevent tragedies and build a safer world for both animals and humans. Thank you for watching True Animal Terrors. Stay vigilant, stay compassionate, and always respect the wild instincts that never fade. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life stories that matter.